EP. All right, it is Tuesday, January 4th, 2022, and we are live. Welcome to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. So, as I was saying, I saw an article from news1.com. I saw some different stories dealing with this interview that Chuck Todd of Meet the Press did with Nikole Hannah-Jones of the 1619 Project. And she was getting attacked by right-wing media because in the interview, she talked about how parents should really leave it up to teachers to decide what should be taught in schools. Okay. And also the Virginia governor's race came up. The Virginia's governor's race that Glenn Youngkin, the Republican, won against Terry McAuliffe, the Democrat. And we know education, critical race theory, but also education was a central issue in that governor's race as well. And Nikole Hannah-Jones said, quote, "I don't really understand this idea." And let me bring this picture of her also here. "I don't really understand this idea that parents should decide what's being taught." Okay, she said, I'm not a professional. I'm not a professional educator. I don't have a degree in social studies or science. We send our children to school because we want them to be taught by people who have expertise in the subject area, and that's not my job. Okay, and right-wing media outlets were fixated on her saying I'm not a professional educator. They fixated on that statement, but skipped over other things she was saying as well. Okay, so we're going to talk some about that. I'm going to let you hear the interview. Then we're going to continue our discussion. We had a really good discussion on a Monday show to kick off the new year, dealing with Junkanoo. And Jonkonnu is a African-American celebration that takes place. Well, it took place during right around Christmas time. And it was something that was celebrated by African slaves, but it originated in Jamaica, and it was basically introduced into Jamaica by the Igbo. Okay, the Igbo of Nigeria. There's a good article from the Washington Post. Junkanoo, the holiday when Black revelers could mock their enslavers. So we talked some about this on yesterday's show. We're going to continue that discussion. And there was a good article from Pulse.ng. Pulse.ng. Did you know about the Igbo people of Jamaica? And that ties into Junkanoo. And there was also one from face-to-faceafrica.com dealing with the Igbo as well. And this deals with traditions that the Igbo of Nigeria took into Jamaica, okay? From libation pouring to patois infusions, this is how the Igbo people of Nigeria influenced Jamaica. This is an article from face-to-faceafrica.com. All right, so we'll talk about that on today's show. Now, on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or a woman's thoughts, you can control the compass of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep. Turn on live notifications so you know when we go live. Okay, we're coming up on a break. When we come back from the break, we're going to go to this interview that Chuck Todd of Meet the Press did with Nikole Hannah-Jones on December 26th. On December 26th. But I want to look at this article here from newsone.com. Newsone.com has a good article on the subject. Nikole Hannah-Jones said people should listen to educators, and she's right. Nikole Hannah-Jones said people should listen to educators, and she's right. Coverage that picks apart statements to inflame false controversy only furthers misinformation. So this is a piece from newsone.com from December 27th, 2021. And it deals with the, okay, we're coming up here on a break. We'll jump into this on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by, back from break in 4 minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. Share this broadcast on your social media platform. Stand by. Back from break in 3 minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 3 minutes. Stand by. All right, who still needs to register for the online courses I teach on Saturdays and Sundays? From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. And Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We'll post information here. Stand by. Stand by. Okay, you can register for the online courses now. How you doing, April? Who we have here? April, Becky. Okay. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Tuesday, January 4th, 2022, and we are live. Hope everybody's doing well. You can still register for the online courses I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. We had a great class this past Sunday. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. So we have both classes in a bundle pack for only $70. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for the classes. You can watch the class we just did this past weekend, and you can join us in class this Sunday. Okay, we do this Sundays 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and on Saturdays 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, for more information. All right, I want to jump into go back to this article here from newsone.com dealing with Nikole Hannah-Jones and the 1619 Project, and the interview that Chuck Todd did with her on December 26th. Okay, so this past was the Sunday before last. Okay, day after Christmas. If we look at now, a lot of people gave the 1619 Project as a Christmas gift or Kwanzaa gift. And I want to go back to this article here because right-wing media has been attacking Nikole Hannah-Jones, and they picked up on something that she said here in the interview. Now, if we look at this article briefly here from newsone.com, it says right-wing outlets continue their war against critical race theory and the 1619 Project. Creator and New York Times writer Nikole Hannah-Jones, after a recent appearance on MSNBC's Meet the Press. It's actually NBC's Meet the Press, but they showed it on MSNBC. Outlets ran stories claiming Nikole Hannah-Jones said she wasn't an educator, or that she didn't think parents should have a say in their children's education. But they really took her comments out of context. Okay, and let me see if I can blow this up some more. They really took her comments out of context. All right, now also the calling number is 313-778-7600, 313-778-7600 if you have a question or comment. Okay, so Nikole Hannah-Jones tweeted on Monday, December 27th, that it seems like such coverage is coordinated, as if writers for these outlets and the people who follow them are simply waiting to pounce. So you can follow Nikole Hannah-Jones on Twitter. I follow her. You can follow me back, Nikole. You can do a brother solid and follow him back. It's Ida Bay Wells, okay, at N Hannah Jones on Twitter. You can always tell when the right-wing propaganda machine, let's see if we can blow this up some more. Okay, here we go. So those on Facebook and YouTube, let me know if you can see this. She said, I can always tell when the right-wing propaganda campaign has coordinated its coverage against me, because these are the emails that flood my inbox. All right, and hold on just a second. Okay, there we go. She said, it's all good. I'm not posting this because my feelings are hurt. I'm going to expose it. So she got some nasty emails. One person called her a garden tool and all this other stuff. That's not even necessary. I mean, you could there's some things I disagree with in the 1619 Project, but I'm not trying to ban it. You know, I'm not trying to destroy it or call her names. So she goes on to say, amazing how all the articles use identical language. Amazing how all of the articles use identical language. Now, so the article from newsone.com goes on to say, and we're going to clip one in just a second, Jalen. Jalen's in for Shakita. Shakita's out sick, so we wish Shakita well. I think she'll be back any day now. So I talked to my board op Shakita over the holiday break, so she's feeling better, so she should be back any day now. Now, without context, that would seem like damning admissions from a well-respected journalist and high-profile HBCU professor. Except context absolutely matters. Now, during the 17-minute interview that Chuck Todd on NBC's Meet the Press did with Nikole Hannah-Jones, Chuck Todd asked her a series of questions about the fake controversy around genuine discussions around race in public education. Okay. So I want to go to this interview here, and we'll talk about it on the other side of the interview. Let's go to clip one, Jalen.
When the 1619 Project was published by the New York Times, it became an object of both admiration and criticism. The series of essays was named for when African slaves were first taken to these shores, and it places slavery and its legacy at the center of American history. Journalist Nikole Hannah-Jones won a Pulitzer Prize for the project, but also came under criticism for suggesting that the American Revolution itself was fought to preserve slavery. You people have spent more time researching, thinking, and writing about race in America than Nikole Hannah-Jones, and she joins me now. Nikole, welcome to Meet the Press.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Let me just start with this. Describe in your own words what the 1619 Project is and its mission.
The 1619 Project is a book now. It began as a magazine and a special section of the New York Times. And what it is it marks the advent of African slavery in the original 13 colonies. So 1619 is the year the first Africans were sold into slavery in Virginia. And what the project argues through a series of essays is that very little about American life today has been left untouched by the legacy of slavery and the anti-Blackness that developed in order to justify it. So it is trying to place the slavery as an institution, which is one of the oldest institutions in America, really at the center of the story that we tell ourselves about our country, and to explain so much about American life through that lens.
Before I get into some of the larger back and debate about this, the specific on the American Revolution, you have since pulled back on asserting that. What has made you pull back?
I wouldn't say that we pulled back. And in fact, if you read the expanded essay that is now in the book, you'll see that we strengthen the case about the role of slavery in the American Revolution. What we did do with the original text was clarify. So the original sentence said, one of the primary reasons that the colonists decided to declare their independence from Great Britain was to preserve slavery. And what we added were some of. So now it reads, one of the primary reasons that some of the colonists decided to declare their independence from Great Britain was to preserve slavery. So it was just clarifying that we clearly didn't mean all colonists and all colonies, but the case is pretty clear if you look at the scholarship that in Virginia and South Carolina, that protecting slavery was a reason to join a revolution that was started in the northern colonies, but that many southern colonists didn't actually think involved them or needed to.
And I guess that's where there is a debate among historians who say, well, wait a minute, look, this became a coalition of whatever it took to go against the Brits, and the same north-south split that essentially has defined this country even today was there at the American Revolution. You accept that part of it, that the Northerners weren't fighting the revolution to keep slavery. Perhaps some of the Southern states used it as a rationale.
Absolutely. And that's what the argument is. It's not saying that in all 13 colonies and all colonists, but certainly Virginians, where at that time nearly half of the population was enslaved, where Lord Dunmore threatened to unleash the enslaved against the colonists if they didn't end their revolutionary efforts, that preserving slavery became a major reason for those reluctant colonists to join the revolution. But Virginia, of course, is one of the most important colonies in the American Revolution. Virginians write our founding documents. A Virginian wrote our Declaration, our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, our first president. So, yes, there always has been this north-south divide based on the level of dependence that the colonies had on the institution of slavery. But to be clear, I didn't make that up. This is based on the historiography of scholars such as Alan Taylor, who's won 2 Pulitzer Prizes, Woody Holton, Benjamin Quarles, Gerald Horne. So there is contention within the field of historiography, but I am not someone who just pulled this out of thin air. So there is debate,
pause it right there,
debate
Jalen.
within the field.
Pause it right there, Jalen, and just back it up about 30 seconds or so. We're coming up here on a break. I know Gerald Horne. I've talked to him before. Gerald Horne, a historian. He's been on Roland Martin Unfiltered a number of times. When this update from the 1619 project from the New York Times came out regarding the 1619 project, I shared this with Dr. Darrell Scott, history professor at Howard University. You know, I did an interview with him and we talked about the 1619 project and we talked about some of the misinformation in it also. An update to the 1619 project. Today, we are making a clarification to a passage in an essay from the 1619 project that has sparked a great deal of online debate. Now, this is an article from Jake Silverstein for the New York Times. This is from March 11th, 2020. We'll continue this on the other side of the break. We'll deal with that small update. We'll continue also with the interview as well. You listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. All right. Okay, if you like this type of information, also you can support the African History Network, $ the TheAHNShow through Cash App. $ the TheAHNShow through Cash App. Also through PayPal, paypal.me/TheAHNShow. Stand by. Okay, you can support the African History Network, $ the TheAHNShow through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/TheAHNShow. And who still needs to register for the online course I teach on Saturdays and Sundays? On Sundays, it's a 10-week online course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So we deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. We deal with ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, the Nile Valley region of Africa, Nubia, Ta-Nehisi, Abyssinia. We deal with great African civilizations. We deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. And we deal with what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Okay, so we do that on Sundays. On Saturdays, it is from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. This class picks up where the first one leaves off. We have normally these classes are $130 each. We have a special bundle pack right now. You can register for both classes for only $70. That's for a very, very limited time only. All right. So we have the information. You can register at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. As soon as you register, you can watch the classes we just did this past weekend. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch them anytime.
Current events of history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Unfortunately, many people confuse what racism is. Racism is a power structure. It was laws and policies that put us in this predicament. It's going to be laws and policies that take us out. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you control the compass of his or her actions because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know.
We have it on 910 AM Superstation.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Tuesday, January 4th, 2021. And we allow calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for the online courses I teach on the weekends. On Sundays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it's Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Next class is Saturday, January 9th. We do the classes live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch them anytime, even a year from now. If you want to go back and watch the entire class, you can do that as well. And then on Saturdays, I teach from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. And in this class, this is a 10-week online course also. Sometimes we go a little past 10 weeks. But we look at what leads up to the Civil War taking place. We start in 1803 with the Louisiana Purchase. And then we look at the Civil War, 1861, 1865, Reconstruction, 1865, 1877. We look at the Jim Crow era, Great Migration, World War I, World War II, Civil Rights Movement, Black Power Movement. So they're regularly $130 each. We have a special bundle pack for a very, very limited time only. You can register for both classes right now for only $70. It's at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. As soon as you register, you can start watching the content. All right. And we'll post a link here again so you can register for that. All right. I want to go back to the interview here that Chuck Todd of Meet the Press did with Nikole Hannah-Jones of the 1619 Project. And we'll go back to that just here. Right before the break, we were talking about this update to the 1619 Project. Now, this update came out March 11th, 2020. A lot of people are familiar with it, but some people are not. I talked about it when it came out. I discussed it with Dr. Daryl Scott, history professor at Howard University, and I interviewed him. Some of you all saw the interview we did in 2021 where we dealt with the myth that the 13th Amendment re-enslaved the myth that the 13th Amendment re-enslaved. There was a loophole that re-enslaved African Americans. Okay, that's the 13th Amendment is based upon a Northwest Ordinance of 1787. Okay, so that's just nonsense that developed in the 1960s. Okay, it's believed it's traced back to Lee Wood, who was an African American man in prison in California. That's where it's believed that myth started, because when you go study post Reconstruction activists and African American activists, things like this is not something that they were saying, that the 13th Amendment was re-enslaving them. But anyway, so an update to the 1619 Project. Today we are making a clarification to a passage in an essay from the 1619 Project that has sparked a great deal of online debate. So in this piece from Jake Silverstein for the New York Times, it says, today we're making a clarification to a passage in an essay from the 1619 Project that has sparked a great deal of online debate. The passage in question states that one primary reason the colonists fought the American Revolution was to protect the institution of slavery. This assertion has elicited criticism from some historians and support from others. We stand behind the basic point, which is that among the various motivations that drove the Patriots toward independence was a concern that the British would seek or were already seeking to disrupt in various ways the entrenched system of American slavery. Versions of this interpretation can be found in some of the scholarship into the origins and character of the revolution, of the American Revolution, that has marked the past 40 years or so of early American historiography, in part because historians of the past few decades have increasingly scrutinized the role of slavery and the agency of enslaved people in driving events of the Revolutionary period, American Revolutionary War, 1775 to 1783. The 1619 Project is an ongoing initiative from the New York Times Magazine that began in August 2019, the 400th year anniversary of the beginning of American slavery. Even now, they do, in the 1619 Project that was in the New York Times newspaper, they did deal with the fact that codified slave laws didn't exist in any of the 13 colonies in 1619. Those 20 and odd Africans are put into a form of indentured servitude and released after 3 to 5 years. The first British colony of the 13 colonies to have codified slave laws is Massachusetts in 1641. They come to Virginia in about 1660, 1661. They hit the different colonies at different times. If you read chapter 2 Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr., he does a good job of really laying this out and how all this evolved. Now, it aims to reframe the country's history by placing the consequence of slavery and the contributions of African Americans. Now, one, in the New York Times, one, they usually say Black Americans, which is problematic, as opposed to African Americans. Two, they spell Black with a lowercase b, which is problematic as well. If you're going to use Black to describe a people and you don't give up a continent for a color, but if you're going to do that, at least capitalize the B. You don't give up a continent for a color. As one of my teachers, Professor James Small, says, he says, I'm an African American. African is my race. America is my geopolitical place. What is Black? And the contributions of African Americans at the very center of our national narrative. All right, so that's you can read the rest of this update here. I don't have time to get into it, but we'll post this link here. This is from New York Times, March 11th, 2020, an update to the 1619 Project. Okay, let's go back to the interview, Jalen.
There always has been this north-south divide based on the level of dependence that the colonies had on the institution of slavery. But to be clear, I didn't make that up. This is based on historiography of scholars such as Alan Taylor, who's won 2 Pulitzer Prizes, Woody Holton, Benjamin Quarles, Gerald Horne. So there is contention within the field of historiography, but I am not someone who just pulled this out of thin air. So where there is debate, right, the debate is within the field and should not be about the credibility of the project.
Let me ask you this. I think, is America alone here? Or was this, for instance, you look at the Western Hemisphere alone. We can go to Brazil. We know that they had slavery. They didn't abolish slavery until the late 19th century.
1888.
And I think some of the critiques is you paint this as a uniquely American issue when sadly, civilization and slavery went hand in hand for a couple thousand years.
Well, no one who actually reads the project can say that the project paints this as slavery as a uniquely American institution, because clearly it doesn't. And the project talks about slavery across the Americas. We don't talk about all of slavery in all of the world, because that expectation is never the expectation of scholarship on the Americas. When we talk about the American Civil War, the expectation isn't that you talk about every civil war in global history. So I don't understand why that's an argument when we talk about American slavery. The truth is, though, that
Jalen, pause it right there. Pause it right there for a second, man. Just back it up about 20, 30 seconds. So she just B-slapped him. See, I don't like Chuck Todd. I don't. I think he's just I don't like Chuck Todd. Okay. So how do you, first of all, what the U.S. introduces, chattel slavery, is different than the previous forms of slavery. The previous forms of slavery that existed, Greece and Rome and things like this, those previously, that usually wasn't based upon race. You weren't just inherently born into slavery because of your race. It was because of a debt you owed. It was because of you were a prisoner of war, or it was because of a religious war. Okay, the slavery that the U.S. creates. Okay, and these are British colonies. Okay, that chattel slavery was something entirely different. So for Chuck Todd, who to me is just a mediocre, he's just a mediocre journalist. Okay, for Chuck Todd to try to equate the slavery that was created here in the U.S. inflicted upon African people, to try to equate that to the previous 2,000 years of slavery, that's some underhanded stuff right there. He should get blasted for that. All the historians should come out. Dr. Gerald Horne, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Dr. Malefe Kete Asante, even Dr. Henry Louis Skip the Truth Gates knows better than that. And Gates is bought and paid for by corporate America. I read 2 of Gates' books, but Gates, when you go back, and we deal with this in my class, we're going to talk about this Sunday. When you go and look at the op-ed article that Gates wrote for the New York Times back in 2010 called "Ending the Slavery Blame Game," Gates puts forth the notion that Africans were as equally culpable in the transatlantic slave trade as Europeans were. Well, Dr. Malefe Kete Asante, chair of the Afro-American Studies Department at Temple University, who I know, he put out a essay totally dismantling Gates' argument. We'll deal with this on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. All right. Share this broadcasting on social media platforms. Stand by. All right. How's everybody doing? Back from break in 4 minutes. Okay, stand by, everybody. One commercial break. Back from break in 3 minutes. Here's a link here so you can register for my online classes for the weekend. We have the bundle pack there, so you can join the Saturday and Sunday in class, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Okay, who we have here? Nguvu. All right. We got John. Okay, African American business owners also post name your business here in the thread of the broadcast. Email us at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. Okay, post name your business here. Our current promotion is buy 1 month, get 2 months free. So that's going on just for a few more days because I'm getting revamp the advertising offer, so you can jump in and take advantage of this now. Stand by. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on the 10 a.m. Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Tuesday, January 4th, 2022. So happy New Year to everybody. Okay, so right before the break, we were listening to this interview that Chuck Todd, who I'm not a fan of, on Meet the Press, NBC, did with Nikole Hannah-Jones of the 1619 Project. All right. And let's see here. Okay, let's Let's bring this back up. Okay, let's go back to the interview, Jalen.
Scholarship on the Americas. When we talk about the American Civil War, the expectation isn't that you talk about every civil war in global history. So I don't understand why that's an argument when we talk about American slavery. The truth is, though, that chattel slavery, racialized chattel slavery, was unique to the Americas, that a system that transported 13 million people across the Atlantic Ocean and held them in perpetual bondage for more than 250 years, that was racialized, and where people were turned into commodities that could be bought and sold and traded and had no rights or privileges within the country, and that this happened in a country that was founded on ideals of individual liberty. Brazil didn't have a constitution that said all we are a government of the people, by the people. They didn't begin with a founding document that says we hold these truths to be evident that all men are created equal. Neither did Cuba, neither did Jamaica, but the United States did. So what is unique? No, chattel slavery was not unique to the United States. But what was unique was that we practiced chattel slavery while saying and professing these beliefs in equality and universal rights of men. And that's what this project is trying to do. The 1619 Project, which is very clearly stated, is about slavery in the United States of America. It is not a project about slavery in the world. It is not a project about slavery. It is a project about how does the impact of a country founded on ideals of freedom that engages in chattel slavery, that, by the way, was third to the last of all the countries in the Americas to abolish slavery, and the only one besides Haiti, where enslaved people rose up and overthrew their masters, that required a war to abolish slavery. We are unique in that way, and this is a project looking at the unique impact that slavery has had on the United States.
Look, I think the most healthy part of this project is that it has sparked debate. That's the whole point, and there's nothing healthier than when historians get together. And yes, and if you think about it over time, lots of our historical understandings have changed because there's been new scholarship, because there's been new education. So let me ask you this. Did you intend for the 1619 Project to become public school curriculum, or did you intend it to start a debate to improve the curriculum of how we teach American history?
Well, when I first pitched the project, I simply pitched it as a work of journalism, which it is. I mean, I'm a journalist at the New York Times, and I pitched a project to run as a piece of journalism in the New York Times. Now, some months in, as we were working on the project, we began to talk about that this could be a great learning tool for students. Particularly, we were thinking about the broadsheet that ran in partnership with the National Museum of African American History and Culture that talks about teaching slavery through objects found in that museum. Now, the New York Times has an education division. The New York Times regularly turns its journalism into curriculum, as the Pulitzer Center, who we ultimately partnered with. They are constantly turning works of journalism into curriculum. It's only become controversial because people have decided to make the 1619 Project controversial. But this is something very normal. Many newspapers discount their newspapers to get journalism into schools. So no, I didn't initially intend it to be part of curriculum, but I don't understand why that's problematic. And frankly, most educators are using it to supplement standard curriculum. No one is replacing the old curriculum with the 1619 Project. And I certainly didn't expect this type of controversy, no.
I think in the last 2 years, a lot of people have come to realize that our teaching of history has been incomplete, to be generous, particularly on, I would say, whether it's Reconstruction. I mean, we sort of talk about glossing over that, or specifically think about the Tulsa Massacre and how so many people have said, I didn't get taught that. I grew up in Miami, Florida. I didn't get taught about Axe Handle Sunday in Jacksonville.
Saturday.
When you look at our public schools, 8 in 10 public school teachers are white, yet half of the public school students are students of color. How do we improve that aspect of education in America?
So I don't think that, we should definitely have more Black and Latino educators because that is what our country looks like. But I don't think you have to be Black or Latino in order to teach a more accurate history. The problem is that our teacher preparation programs are not equipping educators with the knowledge that they need to teach this history better. When you look at the survey by Teaching Tolerance, they found that about half or slightly more than half of American educators say they don't feel equipped to teach about slavery, and they really struggle to teach about slavery. It's kind of ironic that we're seeing these bills being passed, these anti-history laws, to make it more difficult to teach about slavery and racism and our country's long history of racism, when in fact, we have educators who are struggling the opposite way. They're holding mock slave auctions in their classrooms. They're having students do assignments where they have to list the pros and cons of slavery because they really don't know how to teach this very well. And that's because as a country, we have not honestly grappled with the truth about our history. And the history we learn is often about nationalism and patriotism,
right,
but not about telling
where should that come from?
Truth.
You know, I've thought about this, and I know that if government says this is our history, people are going to say, oh, I'm not letting government historians decide what our history is. This seems to be a real challenge in an open society, is how do we get agreement on this, especially when, you know, parents want to have a Virginia governor's race was arguably decided on the strength of how influential should parents be on curriculum. How do we do this?
Well, I would say the governor's race in Virginia was decided based on the success of a right-wing propaganda campaign that told white parents that they needed to fight against their children being indoctrinated as being called racist. But that was a propaganda campaign. And there are a lot of Black parents in Virginia. There are a lot of Latino parents in Virginia, and they were not being featured in that coverage. And what they wanted for their kids' education, which is more teaching about race, more teaching about the history of racism, seem to have fallen on deaf ears. So I think we should frame that question properly. And I don't really understand this idea that parents should decide what's being taught. I'm not a professional educator. I don't have a degree in social studies or science. We send our children to school because we want them to be taught by people who have an expertise in the subject area. And that is not my job. When the governor or the candidate said that he didn't think parents should be deciding what's being taught in school, he was panned for that. But that's just the fact. This is why we send our children to school and don't homeschool, because these are the professional educators who have the expertise to teach social studies, to teach history, to teach science, to teach literature. And I think we should leave that to the educators. Yes, you should have some say. But school is not about simply confirming our worldview. Schools should teach us to question. They should teach us how to think, not what to think.
At what age?
And I wouldn't want my
Is there an
child
age restriction in your
to
mind?
go to a school.
You know, there's this,
about teaching what?
Teaching sort of when it comes to teaching our past. You know, there's this, and I think this is coming basically through a racial lens. But there's this, you know, parents are saying, "Hey, don't make my kid feel guilty."
All right, those watching on Facebook and YouTube. We're out of time here. Those watching on 910 a.m. Superstation listening, we're out of time here. Those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching. We'll go for a couple more minutes. We're going to continue this discussion on tomorrow's show, and then we'll get to part 2 of the discussion with Jonkonnu because we're out of time here. And on tomorrow's show, we're going to squeeze in. We'll talk a little bit about why African Americans eat black-eyed peas on New Year's Day. And black-eyed peas is African food also. A lot of people don't know this. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. All right, stand by, everybody. Okay, we'll continue that interview on tomorrow's show. That is from that's on NBC's YouTube channel, and it's on MSNBC.com. It's at their website as well. Read the article here from NBC News. I think they have the clip of it. I think they have the clip of it here. They have the full interview here in this article from newsone.com also. This one right here. Nikole Hannah-Jones said people should listen to educators, and she's right. This is by newsone.com staff. All right. And it has some of her quotes in here from the interview, but it has the video of the full interview in here also. But she said that I don't really understand. If you scroll down here, I don't really understand this idea that parents should decide what's being taught. I'm not a professional educator. I don't have a degree in social studies. We send our children to school because we want them to be taught by people who have expertise in the subject area, and that is not my job, end quote. Now, right-wing media outlets fixated on the part where she said, I'm not a professional educator statement in the context of a discussion of a K through 12 education. Nikole Hannah-Jones has taught journalism and written and writing professionally. She has taught journalism and writing professionally, even as a journalist and researcher who documented a painful part of American history. Nikole Hannah-Jones thinks it makes sense to prioritize the experts in their respective fields. Because besides, as she said, being a journalist is not the same as being someone who specializes in curriculum development or teaches K through 12 social studies or science. All right. Now, coverage that picks apart statements to inflame false controversy only furthers misinformation. These distortions helped provide cover for political decision making in numerous states, as demonstrated by laws proposed and or passed in states like Oklahoma and Florida. Nikole Hannah-Jones also corrected Chuck Todd's framing of the issues at a few points during the conversation, noting how he separated parents from parents of color as if white parents were somehow especially concerned. Responding to a question about adding more educators of color, Nikole Hannah-Jones highlighted a bigger issue she sees in the classroom. Okay. And then that's when she said we should definitely have more Black and Latino educators because that is what our country looks like. But I don't think you have to be Black or Latino in order to teach a more accurate history. You just have to know what the history is to be able to teach it and be willing to tell the truth. Now, teachers need the resources and confidence to support children. Professional development guides and toolkits from the Learning for Justice, a project of the Southern Poverty Law Center, can be helpful for teachers trying to navigate challenging issues. Now, the Southern Poverty Law Center, they have a link here. Click on that link. The Southern Poverty Law Center also put out this study that you've heard me talk about numerous times before, Teaching Hard History, American Slavery. Teaching Hard History, American Slavery from the Southern Poverty Law Center. So this study, now this came out February 2018. This study, it's about a 56-page study. It goes through and documents how the history of slavery is largely being incorrectly taught in schools all across the country. And it lays out ways to more correctly teach that history. And they did a survey of part of the survey they did, part of the study, they did a survey of 1,000 high school seniors. A survey of 1,000 high school seniors to find out what they know about the history of slavery. Only 8% of the 1,000 high school seniors surveyed, and they surveyed it was from a number, it was high school seniors from a number of different schools. It's from different states. Only 8% of high school seniors surveyed could identify slavery as the central cause of the U.S. Civil War. Only 8%, not 80%, 8%. 2/3 or 68%, actually a little more than 2/3, 68%, did not know that it took a constitutional amendment to formally end slavery, the 13th Amendment, because they probably thought it was the Emancipation Proclamation, which is not true. Fewer than 1 in 4 students, or 22%, could correctly identify how provisions in the U.S. Constitution gave advantages to slaveholders, like the Three-Fifths Compromise of 1787, Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 of the U.S. Constitution, which gave an advantage to slaveholding states in the House of Representatives, but also in the Electoral College, because it dealt with the Three-Fifths Compromise dealt with how do you count the population of African slaves in when it comes to apportionment, determining how many seats in the House of Representatives these slaveholding states are going to have. Do you count the full population of them? Do you count half the population? They decided to count 3/5 of the population. It's not, when you read the Constitution and really study what this is saying, it's not saying they were 3/5 of a person. It says for the purpose of apportionment and taxation, they're going to count 3/5 of that population, because the South wants to count the full population of enslaved Africans. The North is saying, well, wait a second, if you count the full population, because the majority of the slaves were in what we would call the southern states, because 5 states had already abolished slavery by 1787, starting with Vermont, July 2nd, 1777. And they 5 states had already either fully abolished slavery or abolished the international transatlantic slave trade, which means bringing Africans into the country to enslave them. Massachusetts had basically had abolished that. Philadelphia, they instituted Pennsylvania, they instituted the Pennsylvania Gradual Abolition Act. So you have states that are either have abolished slavery or they're phasing it out. So that's what the Three-Fifths Compromise is about. Article 4, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution laid the foundation for the Fugitive Slave Act of 1793 and the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. That's part of the Compromise of 1850. Although teachers overwhelmingly, over 90% of teachers surveyed claim they feel comfortable discussing slavery in the classrooms, their responses to open-ended questions reveal profound unease around the topic of slavery. And then 58% of teachers surveyed find that their textbooks are inadequate. Okay, so that's from the executive summary. That's from page 9. So read, this is Teaching Hard History, American Slavery from the Southern Poverty Law Center. If you go to splcenter.org and search for it, it'll come up, Teaching Hard History, American Slavery. And on the board of, on the board of the advisory board that put this together is Dr. Hassan Kwame Jeffries, who we've had here on the show before. And he is the nephew of one of my teachers, Dr. Jeffries. So if you go to, this is from Ohio State University. That's not what I want. He's an associate professor of history at Ohio State University, Dr. Hassan Kwame Jeffries. Sometimes you see him on MSNBC, on Tiffany Cross's show. I've also seen him on the Black News Channel. But let me pull this up here. But you can download the study from the Southern Poverty Law Center. I took it to the printer and got it printed up. This is it right here. Teaching Hard History, American Slavery. Slavery is not simply an event. Slavery is not simply an event in our history, it's central to our history. So with this survey, they surveyed high school seniors and social studies, and they analyzed a selection of state content standards, and they reviewed 10 pop U.S. history books. They found that high school seniors struggle on even the most basic questions about American enslavement of Africans. So if you don't really learn this history, how do you understand this history? People's understanding of history influences the policies they support, the politicians they support, okay? Who they vote for, things like this. All this is connected. Teachers who are serious about teaching slavery struggle to provide deep coverage on the subject in the classroom. Popular textbooks fail to comprehensively cover slavery and enslaved peoples. State content standards are timid and fail to set appropriately high expectations. Okay, now this is from this came out in February of 2018. This is before the whole fight over critical race theory started, and Republicans and state legislatures started passing these crazy laws to suppress what type of history can be taught and try to remove books about Dr. King and Ruby Bridges and all types of nonsense like this. Okay, so check this out at Southern Poverty Law Center. Teaching Hard History of American Slavery. All right, be sure to register for the online courses I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place also. And then we go through and analyze the transatlantic slave trade as well. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips, everything. And you don't have to buy any of the books to follow along in class. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. So next class is Sunday, January 9th. And then the other class I teach is from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement of Black Power, 1865 to 1968. And that's on Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have a bundle pack right now. You can register for both classes. Normally they're $130 each. Right now for very, very limited time only, you can register for both classes for only $70. And you just have full access to the class even after the class is over with. Okay, so you can still go back and watch the classes anytime. All right, I'm going to post we'll post the link here again. So as soon as you register, you can start watching the content. And this is the link here for the course bundle pack. All right, and then African American business owners, post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. Email us at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Our current promotion is buy 1 month, get 2 months free for a very limited time only. Buy 1 month, get 2 months free. Why isn't this coming up? All right. But anyway, email us at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Email us at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. Just let me pull this up. This is that here. All right, this is what I'm looking for. Okay, so advertise with the African History Network. So we, you can send us your 30-second, 60-second commercial. If you don't have one, we can create one for you. And it airs when we broadcast these shows. It's a video commercial, and then also we create the audio version of the commercial where we'll air in the audio podcasts of these shows. Also, we're on 10 different audio podcast platforms: iHeartRadio, iTunes, Castbox, FM Player, TuneIn, Facebook Podcasts also. And then we will also upload your video commercial on our Facebook fan page where we have 1 million followers as well. Okay. So there's a lot that you get. Email us at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and we'll let you know how you can advertise with us, and we'll get you started right away. All right, look, we have to get out of here. If you like this type of information, also you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me /the AHN Show. We're here 6 days a week. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, etc. All right, this is our official Cash App account, $ the AHN Show, SHOW. When you go to it, it says Michael, and it shows my picture there. Okay, these other ones here are fake African History Network Cash App accounts. That's the other ones are not us. All right, look, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now, it's corrects wrong behaviors. Not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. Thanks for tuning in.
Health and well-being have long been a taboo subject in the so-called African American community. So I enlisted the help of mental health experts, thought leaders, and activists to help kill the ghost of Willie Lynch and heal from post-traumatic slave syndrome.
We experience trauma a lot of times on a subconscious level. So sometimes something happens to us and we know that it's traumatizing, but we don't really recognize the extent of the trauma.
Soul in Motion, celebrating 38 years in the arts. This energetic ensemble of dancers and drummers was started by percussionist Michael Friend and is led by choreographer Associate Director Pam Lassiter. Based in the Washington, D.C. area, Soul in Motion is now accepting bookings for Black History Month, Juneteenth, and summer festivals in 2022. Soul in Motion is also available for more intimate events like naming ceremonies and weddings. To find out more or to book your date, call 240-452-1349 or send an email to info@soulinmotion.org. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Soul in Motion, celebrating our history, our culture, our future. Soul in Motion. Theater, African dance, and drumming since 1984.